In this episode, let's explore the narratives and experience shared by John Galetzka regarding this history of CORS network, its strength and contribution to Himalayan geology and seismology, the scientific finding it's facilitated, the reason behind its transition to an inactive state, and consideration for its future direction. Currently, he is in Nepal for his visit. Without any further delay, let's welcome our speaker for today, Mr. John Galetzka. Mr. Galetzka, welcome to this new series and welcome back to Nepal.
Thank you so much for the introduction and also the opportunity to speak to geomatics professionals or up and coming professionals. So I'm speaking to you from my friend's house in Budanilkanta right now, and just to be safe, I'm presenting from my laptop computer through the house Wi-Fi. But I'm connected, I'm using voice right now through my cell phone. So if at any moment, let me know if the audio or video fails, okay? So Arun, please reach out and let me know, okay?
Okay, we'll let you know if anything.
And just to save bandwidth, I'm going to turn off my video, okay?
Okay. Then we'll have two sessions in this episode, as I earlier mentioned in previous conversation. At first, we'd like to hear from you. Then we'll have Q&A session. For now, it's up to you. You can share your content. Thank you.
Okay. Well, first of all, how is my audio? Is it okay?
Yeah, it is very good.
Excellent. Okay. Yes, let's begin. So, a journey through Nepal's CORS network, insights and experiences from myself. So, I will start with the acknowledgements, and then I will explain what a CORS is, just in case some or all of you do not know. I'll give you some of my background, how I got to this point, and then tell you about the beginnings of CORS in Nepal, and then the Gorkha earthquake in 2015, and the geodetic response, the international and national community, how we came together to recover CORS data and analyze it and assess it, and then we'll talk about CORS now and the future. And again, how's my video, my audio still okay?
It is okay. It's good. It's good.
Okay, proceeding. Acknowledgements. I want to acknowledge first my presence here in Nepal is thanks to a club that I joined, a student club from the University of Colorado at Boulder, and they are known as Engineers Without Borders. And for many years, they have projects. They do small engineering projects near Elam and in Kalanchok, so that they paid for my flight to come over to Nepal this time, and they will arrive in Nepal on. So they're having finals. They just finished their finals and they're starting their flight today, and they'll arrive in Kathmandu on Sunday, and then we'll go out to the field and do their engineering project. But they always need a traveling mentor, and I am their traveling mentor. I also want to acknowledge all these years, my 2 decades of working in Nepal. I couldn't have done it without the help of many friends and colleagues, with friends and colleagues at the Department of Mines and Geology and National Nepal Academy of Science and Technology and other agencies. There's far too many people to go one by one. So I just want to say thanks to them, and they helped me where I am now. Let's see. I think I'm going to do a poll. We're going to do some interaction here. So get your get your hands up or your thumbs up or your thumbs down. So I'm going to see how many people know what a CORS is. And if you know, give me a thumbs up. And I have no idea if we can do a thumbs down or if there's some other icon, but see what you can do. Okay, I see a bunch of thumbs up. Very good. And of course, you know, in USA we have this beer called CORS, and this is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about. It looks like most of you know, but now, if is there someone out there that does not know what a CORS is? Send me some love, you know, some heart or something. And there's no shame if you don't know, but it looks like everyone knows. So yes, this is an example of a CORS station, a continuously operating reference station. And in this case, we use continuous GNSS Global Navigation Satellite System, a station. It's always on 24/7, and it's recording at various sample rates. But it consists of what you see here in the foreground, under
Hi,
that
John.
that gray dome is a geodetic grade GPS antenna, and it's sitting on a geodetic monument that is permanently anchored to the ground. So if the ground shifts, so does the antenna. And then you
What?
see there's some conduits, that a cable that runs to that solar panel system in the back. And that is that system in the background. You get power from solar, and it doesn't have to be from solar. It can be from line, from a building or such. Heck, I even see one of my colleagues from National Geodetic Survey. I'm a shout out to Will Freeman. I see he's on this call. Let me continue here. All right, I see we have the CORS slide. So, okay, we already went through this. I'm not talking about a CORS beer in USA. So, let's see, is it advancing? There we go, it's advancing. So what you're seeing here, this is one type of CORS. A CORS, a continuously operating reference station, and we use continuous GNSS, Global Navigation System, to track Earth movements. And you can use this data for a variety of reasons. Survey control, earthquake research, and there's so many other applications. But the CORS, the station itself, in the foreground, you see this tripod-looking thing, and that is the geodetic monument. It's anchored to the Earth permanently. Under the gray radome is a geodetic grade GNSS antenna. And then you see in that cable, in that conduit going back to the right rear, you see this assembly where you have a solar panels. You have a white box. You even have, I'll use my cursor here. There's even a weather station there that you can be able to do GPS meteorology. So let me advance here. So this is the inside of the box. So you have batteries to provide storage when the sun is not shining or during dark, stormy conditions or such. Here is the GNSS receiver. The white box behind the solar panels, there's a GNSS receiver inside, battery backup, a solar controller, and the way we communicate with this station is with a cellular router. So, of course, you need some type of communication device. It could be a satellite modem, it could be line internet, Wi-Fi. There's many different methods. Okay, so here's the an image of the inside of that box. You see the battery backup. You see a GNSS receiver here, a cellular router. You have the cellular solar controller. So and of course an enclosure to keep everything protected from the elements. And and I also like to use solar panels, or you try to keep the equipment cool and in the shade. So I've switched slides here, and there's a lag again. Oh no, there it goes. Okay, so some of my background. Yes, I trained as a geologist, but I also have a foundation in the Army, and I think it's my this combination of my Army training and training as a geologist that I came to love CORS and making CORS and managing CORS networks. My beginnings in CORS began. I was after college, getting my degree in geology. I was brought into the USGS, U.S. Geological Survey, and instead of doing traditional geology, they brought me onto a new CORS network. That was the technology. The CORS technology was just beginning in the early 90s, and there was an earthquake in Southern California, where CORS technology was to be used to understand the earthquake hazard in Southern California. So this was my beginnings. Stations in Nepal. The picture that you see here is of Daman Station, and actually the monument is here on the right side. The antenna is under that cone. I'm switching slides now. Okay, so Caltech sent me to Nepal to build a network of CORS. Perhaps the target was about 30 stations. The first one was at Kakani, and you see here my DMG colleagues, and we are installing the first station. And this was I think New Year's Day of the year 2004. We went on to build something like 30 stations under DMG. And again, the primary purpose of this CORS network was to understand the earthquake hazard in Nepal. So to look for the earth movements that can indicate where stress is building up in the earth, and give indication where that strain is accumulating and how much strain might have accumulated since the last known earthquake in that region. And with this information, you can do better hazard analysis, and also you have a better understanding of earthquake processes. We're here. I just changed the slides, so this. You'll see we are celebrating, and again, there's a bit of a lag here. We're celebrating the first station that we built at Kakani. I'm going to switch slides again. We'll just go to this slide here that you see now. This is a station in Simera. So this is just to show you that we have these stations from low elevation to high elevation, from east to west, at 30 or so CORS across Nepal. Switching slides now. And again, there's a bit of a lag. The next slide that you will see is one of my favorite stations, and this is above Jomsom. And you'll see Sudhir Rajaure, who was the previous DG of Department of Mines and Geology until he retired some months back. And again, there's a lag I see in the video. Let's wait a moment. And again, this is just to emphasize that Nepal has had a CORS network for more than 20 years. And I consider it the jewel of South Asia. Not even until recently, not even India has had such a network. So Nepal is the first in South Asia, clearly. And again, there's a long lag here, so I don't think you're going to see the Jomsom station. You'll have these slides. You'll have access to these slides afterwards. I'm now trying to show a map of these stations in Nepal. That refresh the map here. Let me go up. Okay, so you see the Jomsom station here. And proceeding to the map. So this was the state of the CORS network in Nepal in 2013, when I formally left Nepal, when funding at Caltech was finished. So you had perhaps almost 30 or so stations, the majority owned by Nepal Department of Mines and Geology. Several were owned by Nepal Academy of Science and Technology. A few were French owned. And then I think we had one, I'm trying to think of perhaps some other cooperants, but no, that's it. But it was a fully functioning network in 2013. And then what you are seeing here is a map of GPS velocity vectors. So it's not just continuous stations, it's also campaign style GPS surveys. But again, it's just showing some of the things you can do with a dense CORS network. So you see that all those vectors in the Nepal area, it's showing. And then if you look up in the north part of Eurasia, you see the red vectors are very small. So all the vectors here that you see are with respect to stable Eurasia. So this is showing that the Indian tectonic plate is squeezing Nepal to the north, and those vectors, the size in Nepal, that's about 2 centimeters of motion per year that you see. But what this can demonstrate is the ground motion, how CORS can demonstrate how the Earth is moving through time. And perhaps the best way to monitor this movement, again, is with CORS. And with this, you can do earthquake research and hazard assessments, but also you can do it for geodetic control and geodetic monitoring. But you need proper reference frames to be able to monitor that motion, and so that surveyors, as many of you are, can use that data. Switching slides here, and again, looks like there's a lag. As it comes up here, I'm going to describe it. It's a position time series of a station in far west Nepal called Bayana. And so you're going to see 3 graphs. At the top is the easting. The center graph will be the north, and then the lower graph will be the vertical in the up. And there, I see it's displayed. And then, so the east, north, and up are in the y-axis. In the x-axis, that's time. So you see 2010 here, 2011, 2012. So, and then for scale, you see 0 to perhaps, that's in millimeters. So you see this interesting annual signal at in Bayana, for example. And so we were wondering, is that slow earthquakes that are happening on a yearly basis? But actually, a researcher from France, uh, he took GRACE data, satellite gravity data, and he correlated what he sees in the GPS position time series. So each those blue lines, those blue curves that you see there are comprised of daily positions, blue dots that are plotted on the graph. And so those undulations you see there are caused by the monsoon loading and unloading. You see this dry season and wet season signal. So if you can imagine, if you see in the vertical, for example, this lower graph, that during the summer season, let's say as the summer progresses, let's say late 2010, that the earth is going down by something like 3 centimeters. That is the water loading. That is the monsoon rain loading that is pushing down Nepal. The beginnings of CORS in Nepal. You see this gentleman on the left side of the screen is a young Professor Bishal Upreti, and he begged me if I had some spare equipment. He wanted me to put a CORS in Kathmandu. So we put a CORS at the campus of Nepal Academy of Science and Technology, and this was not so much to record tectonic motion and understand earthquake hazard, but it was more he surmised that there must be subsidence going on in the Kathmandu Valley, probably due to groundwater withdrawal. And sure enough, I'm advancing to the next slide, and it's going to take some time, but I'll describe to you, just even within a matter of months, the position time series showed us that this station at Nast was subsiding at over 10 centimeters per year. There we go. The slide is updated. So there's the position time series on the left. In the y-axis is that's the in millimeters, I believe, and then or in meters rather. Sorry, and then you have time in years in the x-axis, and so it demonstrated, we didn't see this, for example, Pakani Station, which is on bedrock on the rim of the Kathmandu Valley, that was stable. It was, I can't remember, it was moving vertically, slightly, but certainly not 10 centimeters per year, consistently down. So some years later, a colleague of ours, Gareth Funning at University of Colorado, California, Riverside, he is an expert in synthetic aperture radar, and he made a radar image. So you have these, it's a product, you have these radar satellites that orbit, and you can you can stack an old satellite image and more recent images, and if there's been any motion in between that time, you will see where that motion is happening. So it's very good. It's not as precise as GPS is in points, but in spatial coverage, it's excellent. It sees what's going on between the core stations. So I'm going to show, this is the Kathmandu Valley here. Blue means that it's relatively stable in the vertical. Nast is right here where my cursor is. But this red zone that you see here, if it's yellow, it's moving down at about 10 centimeters per year. And Lazampat here, it showed us that it's subsiding somewhere in the range of at least 17 to 20 centimeters per year. So we actually, the synthetic aperture radar imagery, actually we could put a CORS on a building there just to verify that Lazampat was in fact subsiding at 17 centimeters per year. So again, another value of CORS.
Right.
Okay, so again, going back to a map of Nepal CORS 2013, the state of the network, most of the network online and operating. I left Nepal at that time to take a job with an organization called UNAVCO, University Navstar Consortium, based in Boulder, Colorado. And at that time, I was establishing CORS in other parts of the world and not Nepal. However, and let's advance the screen, Arun. And this is a video here, and we're not going to be able to view it, but it's something you can see on YouTube. But as I think you're all old enough to remember the Gorkha earthquake of April 25th, 2015, and so there were a handful, after 2013, the maintenance of the CORS stations started to go down. So more and more CORS went offline. Luckily, there were a handful of CORS operating at the time of the Gorkha earthquake. And this is a fantastic example. If what I'm trying to, and again, you can see this video online, but it shows, this is data from the NAST station in Kathmandu Valley, and what it shows is we were recording data at 5 samples per second, GPS data, and it showed the earthquake motion. It showed the tectonic motion. It starts up in the middle of the top of the middle of the graph there, and then every point you see is a 1/5 of a second, and within a matter of seconds, that station, which was slowly moving millimeters per year. Thanks, Will. I saw that you made the link there to the video. So that station was slowly moving before the earthquake, and then the earthquake happened, and then you get this incredible motion, and it's paired together with famous security camera footage from Doubly Bazaar, and it's wonderful. When you look at the CORS data, that's this video in real time of the CORS motion and how those people are moving with the undulating, with the shaking of the earthquake. You'll see how the ground motion of the CORS and the ground motion in the video, how they're matched. So I encourage you to see that video. And again, the CORS data capture data that is very useful for earthquake research. Arun, please advance the screen. This is NAST station. So I want to show, you see right there in around, well, you see that red line corresponds to the that you see in the graph of the easting, northing, and the vertical of position time series of NAST. That red line corresponds to the earthquake. So, for example, if you look at the lower graph, you see that NAST station was in 2014 was slowly going down at 10 centimeters per year, and then suddenly the earthquake happened, and that part of Kathmandu came up. It's hard for me to read the screen here. Oh yeah, let's see. It went from minus 300 millimeters to positive. So it rose 600 millimeters. And this is funny. I think I'm still sharing the screen. Are you zooming, Arun, or am I presenting, or are you?
I just zoomed it for you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, I thought I was controlling it somehow. So okay, yes. So that part of Kathmandu actually was uplifted by tectonically 600 millimeters, and of course, you know, it's not showing the shaking here because of the resolution here. But again, since that time, you see that the station, again, because of the groundwater withdrawal, that the station slowly subsided at more than 10 centimeters per year, and it actually looks like it's accelerating. And the station last reported data just before 2020, so we haven't had data from that station in over 3 years. So again, this position time series that you see, there's so much interesting information about what the Earth did in these years that the NAS station was operating. Arun, advance. I lost. Okay, I see it in my other screen here, so I'll just have to look on my mobile phone. This is CORS, Nepal CORS now, and Nepal CORS then. So well-maintained stations. This was in perhaps prior to 2013. Maintained stations. This happens to be a station in Siangboche, and then over the years since 2013, maintenance went down for perhaps a variety of reasons: lack of funding or lack of motivation. Who knows what? Arun, please advance. So what you're seeing now is this is an example of what many stations in Nepal look like now. This happens to be, I forget this station. It's in extreme far west Nepal, but it was vandalized. No one was taking care and monitoring, and vandals came in and took the batteries and such. But I haven't been to most of these stations in years, and they stopped transmitting data. I no longer see the position time series being updated. So this, I'm afraid to say that this is the state of the network now. I think perhaps one of the few stations operating now are at the University of Kathmandu, the core station called KUGE. Arun, please advance. So Nepal CORS future. So it doesn't have to be bleak. I fully believe that we can get it running again, and I have this new hope. Since the last few years, actually, I came in 2015. I helped respond to the earthquake. UNAVCO sent me over, and it was an international and national effort to recover data from the core stations or try to revive stations. And but then I joined, became a mentor with Engineers Without Borders in 2017, and have almost been coming every year except during the COVID years. But I've been really encouraged by the people reaching out to me. For example, a commercial surveyor, Suman Sharma. A few years back, he came back from Australia. He made a business in surveying, and he learned that there were CORS in Nepal, and he tried to do research, and somehow he came to contact me, And he said, hey, how come, where's the CORS data? You know, how can I access it for survey control? And I said, sorry, Schumann, the majority of stations are down. Maybe one, KUGE is operating, but the majority are offline. So because of him and because of faculty and students and staff at KU, I became motivated again to encourage that I believe we can get Nepal CORS operating again. And Arun, please advance the slide. So let me show you a model. You know, this is one example of perhaps what Nepal CORS can be. So since 3.5 years ago, I left UNAVCO and Earthscope to join, and actually I see Sundar. Why don't you keep your question till the end? Okay, I'm almost done here. So. So 3.5 years ago, I joined NGS to become what they call the CORS branch chief. So I manage, my team and we manage a network of 1,800 CORS across the United States. So the mainland United States, Alaska, Hawaii, and territories such as Guam and Puerto Rico, and American Samoa and such. But it's also includes some international stations. For example, we have some stations in Canada that are part of the NOAA CORS network, some stations in Mexico and Caribbean nations. But I just want to show that this is a model. It's called the NOAA CORS network. NOAA stands for National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and it's the umbrella organization of National Geodetic Survey. So the NOAA CORS network, it really doesn't belong to NOAA. It doesn't belong to NGS. NGS, we only own 36 of these 1,800 stations. The rest are all crowdsourced. They belong, the majority, 400 belong to my former workplace, UNAVCO. They're some of the best stations, the best made, but they're mostly on the West Coast where there's a lot of earthquake action going on. But the next biggest contributor is the state of Texas. Other states, Michigan, North Carolina, even individual cities or counties, NASA, National Science Foundation, some national park stations are all contribute to the NOAA CORS network. And NGS, we bring in the data, we process it, we analyze it, we put legal coordinates and legal velocities on each CORS so that the survey community can use it for geodetic control. But the NOAA CORS network, the data can also be used for scientific applications, such as earthquake research or earthquake early warning, or heck, you can even do GPS meteorology or even reflectometry. Reflected GPS or GNSS signals off the water, off snow, off soil can tell you about the elevation of water, the elevation of snow, the moisture in the soil. It's really incredible what you can do with continuous GNSS with CORS. So I just want to say that this could be a model for Nepal, where you have these different organizations that have CORS in Nepal. For example, Department of Mines and Geology has the most at 25 or 30 stations. And then perhaps next is Nepal Academy of Science with their 6 or 7 or 8 stations. Maybe Survey Department has a few stations. And I know we have the one at KU. So I want to say that this could be a model for Nepal, that you work together, one or a few stations, it benefits no one. But a network, a combined network, a collaborative network, and the whole nation can benefit. The science, the engineers, the surveyors, civil society can benefit. And Arun, my last slide, shift. So it's not just a national effort like the U.S. network. The U.S. stations, we also contribute to the international efforts that is led by the IGS, the International GNSS Service. So each of these dots that you see here is a station that different countries and organizations have contributed to the international network. And so at the moment, there are 513 stations in the IGS network. There are no, Nepal hasn't contributed yet, but you see India has contributed several, and as well as some surrounding neighbors. But again, I think Nepal, you can have a national network and you can contribute to the international efforts. And when you do that, you contribute to the international reference frame. So where the whole world is on a consistent reference frame. And then Nepal, you can make perhaps a future reference frame for geodetic control that is based on the international terrestrial reference frame and tailor it for Nepal needs. And because you live on an active plate boundary, you will likely need a dynamic datum, as was proposed by a friend and colleague of mine, Chris Pearson, who used to be at U.S. National Geodetic Survey a few decades ago, but now he's at a university in New Zealand, and he collaborated with Niraj Mandahar from Survey Department, and they wrote a paper a few years ago, just after the Gorkha earthquake, and saying that with CORS, a Nepal CORS network, we can make a dynamic reference frame, a dynamic datum for Nepal. So there are so many benefits of having a CORS, and Nepal needs one. You need to work together. You need to pool your resources. There are limited resources in government and academia and the commercial side. But if you work together, you can have a great network and which benefits Nepal. And you will greatly increase the economy and make jobs and help assess hazards and a variety of other things. So Arun, last slide. So I just want to say, yesterday I was out at Kathmandu University. We were refurbishing the CORS out there. And it's seeing these young people, these young educated people in geomatics engineering just gives me hope for Nepal. So this is the end of my talk, but this, I know, this is not the end of Nepal CORS. And that is my talk, and I open it to discussion.
If anyone has questions, please raise your hand.
Right.
Okay, so first question would be thank you, John, for the presentations. It was so helpful, as we can see that in your presentation as well. The checking of a ground and everything can be well uh, well reflected with this course station. So, well, Nepal is struggling with the this glacier lake outburst. How
Yes.
do you think these course stations can be valuable for predicting these issues so that we can predict and also we can act beforehand for saving lives and livelihoods? Over to you, John.
Okay, here's what I think. I think a CORS, a proper CORS. I mean, there's many different kinds of CORS. For example, a CORS on a water level station on a tide gauge near the ocean. You're monitoring the stability of the tide gauge so that you're not fooled by what you think you might see as rising water in the tide gauge might actually be the sinking of the tide gauge. But GNSS can help you assess the stability of the tide gauge. But in the case of a glacial outburst, imagine, for example, we have Siangboche Station in near Everest region. So you have the CORS. You're doing mapping by drone, laser scanning by drone, and you're measuring the lake levels, and so you're using the CORS for survey control for your project, and so you can. It makes your LiDAR project, your monitoring of lake levels, more precise and accurate, and maybe those same LiDAR scans can also detect deformation of the dam, the natural dam that's holding back the water. So that's one application. Another application is GPS meteorology. Imagine, there's a water moisture in the atmosphere delays the GPS signal, and that can be measured by the CORS. And if done in real time, you could be measuring atmospheric water vapor and assessing whether you're going to have a severe rain burst, which could add, could contribute to a glacial outburst. So those are some ways I think a CORS can help in this situation.
Thank you, John.
Okay, we have another question. Is from Vishal Maharjan. His question is, can you tell me if the sleep rates on the surface are same as those in seismogenic depth?
No, that there's a bit of a lag. There's a bit of a lag at depth, at varying depths, but we cannot send instruments. It's almost impossible to put instruments 20 kilometers down on the fault interface. So, but you can infer. Geophysicists, put instruments on the surface to interpolate what is happening at depth. So they're very good at that. So no, you cannot directly measure what's happening, the motion on the fault, and actually a dangerous fault is actually locked, and that is and actually it's the motion. It's actually that you have that differential motion from north to south in Nepal, that squeeze, that is actually what's alarming. That's it's like loading the spring, and then that one day that energy must be released. So, but yeah, that's how geophysicists infer motion at depth, is by monitoring the surface with instruments like CORS or using synthetic aperture radar remote sensing.
Okay, I think Himlal Gautam sir might have question. He lives the chat. Himlal sir, can you uh, clarify the question by yourself by on from the mic?
Listen me. Sorry.
Okay, can you ask this question directly?
Okay, thank you, Sunil, for giving me this chance. Sorry, my internet was very poor before this time, so I leave my queries. It's not a question, just my query. That John, my question is to John. Thank you, John. First of all, thank you for a beautiful presentation regarding the CORS station and the importance and this application in Nepal also. And as you know, maybe John also know, After Gorkha earthquake before 8 years ago, our department also did research after Gorkha earthquake, and department sent a surveyor with GNSS equipment at the 5 stations around the Kathmandu Valley.
Yes.
Nagarkot, sorry, Kumori. I just forget the place, but there are
Sure.
5 places here. And at that, and the survey department released a press note after calculating all GNSS data, after processing all GNSS data, and by examining the data, the department found that on average the Kathmandu Valley was had shifted approximately about 1.40 meter to the southeast, and the uplift by the 92 centimeters. And the Nagarkot station was uplift by 1.15 meter. And John, I think you have assessed the data of the CORS station, which was established by the Colorado. We call the Colorado CORS station also here. So, what is your observation about after Gorkha earthquake about the Kathmandu Valley shifted and uplifted? As in your presentation, I listened that you said just 10 millimeter of the Kathmandu Valley is uplifted after Gorkha earthquake.
No. NAST, the core station at NAST, Nepal Academy of Science and Technology, it was uplifted 600 millimeters, so 0.6 meters. But it's that point, different. Like, for example, Kakani, I forget. I just can't keep it in my mind. But Chilime, farther to the north, I think it subsided perhaps a meter or so. But yeah, it's not. It's these uplift and subsidence patterns. They correspond to what part of the fault moved. So I didn't show maps of this, and I could have presented this, but I didn't. There's so much information to present, but yeah, there was differential motion that different cores showed, but also another fantastic products that showed displacements from the Gorkha earthquake. And even the strong aftershock in Dolaka some days later, the INSAR, it was very good to show the motion that happened between the cores, the uplift and the subsidence. So if you reach out to me directly, I can. If you don't have that paper, I can get you that information. So.
Thank you, John. Maybe I missed your earlier presentation because of my poor network, internet network. So thank you for your answer.
You're so welcome. And hey, Arun, I'm going to shift my video for a moment. So hold on. You might get a slight.
Okay. We have another question again from Vishal Mahajan. The question is, how can we know how much strain is accumulating from GNSS and is alarming the region if we can't determine slip rate? Do we use slip rate of 2 centimeters per year that we observe on the surface for hazard assessment?
So, the primary, and really, this is not my specialty. My specialty is CORS, and it was my job to establish the CORS network, and then that data goes to proper geophysicists, proper geodesists. So I just know the tip of the iceberg, but yeah, the slip rate, I don't know on the fault, but we do know that there's from north to south that the motion between the northern boundary of Nepal and the southern boundary is on the order of 2 centimeters per year. So we know that. And that is not plastic deformation, it's elastic deformation, the majority. And so that elastic deformation, if it accumulates for many, many, many years, that can lead to very large earthquakes that mean very severe displacements once those earthquakes happen, and then of course that the damage caused by giant earthquakes to infrastructure, as well as any traditional classical reference datums that you might have had in the past. I think the old Nepal datum was completely destroyed figuratively by the Gorkha earthquake. So because of all the displacements vertically and horizontally.
Okay, and again we have another question from Vishal Mohan as well. And is planetary alignment also responsible for the bigger earthquake, as mentioned by dear Dr. Agarbit in 2021 Turkey earthquake? What is your opinion on regarding this?
Yeah, I'll defer that question. It's again, let's focus on Nepal quake business. It's not I'm a
John, so I think it's better that you turn your camera off, but because it was working well earlier. Now that you've turned it on, breaking up again.
okay. Okay. How was that?
That's better. Yeah. We have hands raised now. Mahesh Thapadai, you can just unmute and put forward your question. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for your wonderful presentation. And I'd also like to thank you for the years of work that you have done to establish CORS network. As you mentioned, in 2013, there were already 30 plus CORS stations. And given the investment it takes to establish each CORS stations, I think it's more than 200 million Nepalese rupees, around 20 crores of investment. I think it was a great resource, great infrastructure for, especially for geodetic survey of Nepal. We could have established a geocentric datum using these CORS stations. The problem now, I think, is many of the stations, I think most of the stations don't work. Maybe a few only they work. I just want to know that since you have been working with Department of Mines and Geology for a long time, why this sudden death of motivation that they are not taking care of these things? I mean, once it was so good and suddenly they left it.
Yeah, thanks, Mahesh, for your observation and question. So, in 2013, not only did the funding from Caltech, the project finished, but it could have been extended in one way. My job ended, and I shifted to UNAVCO, but that was, I think, that year the MOU between Caltech and Department of Mines and Geology also expired, and they tried. Caltech tried to renew the MOU, but I think there were some disagreements on what should be provided. So to this day, they've been in negotiation for more than 10 years for this MOU. So, but I truly don't understand, Mahesh, why DMG, doesn't continue to maintain the stations on their own, even without Caltech. So again, like you were saying, this is a jewel, a gem of South Asia, of the Himalaya that has been lost. But yeah, let's try to revive it somehow. So perhaps some MOU between survey department and DMG, or again, this collaborative network where you have partners, the government, academia, and the commercial sector all working together to maintain these cores. And I was happy to say we had a very good training session yesterday at Kathmandu University with the faculty and students. So Nepal youth are smart. They can do this. They can do the networking, the IT that you need to connect, to get the data from the stations, and the maintenance. I think it can all be done. I know it can all be done in Nepal without outside help from USA or anyone. India, Russia, Europe. You can do it by yourself.
Thank you, John. Maybe we have some colleagues from Department of Mines and Geology, and they can put this matter to whoever in charge, and we will soon get the stations back. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy if we can have an informal tea drinking and talking. Maybe that's the beginning. But let's see, Mahesh. Yep.
Okay. If anyone have question, please just put it in the chat box. We still have time left.
So
Or
I would like to ask Joan about, like, you've been working. I saw you presented about the model that has existed in the USA and how the future of Nepal could align with that. So you talked earlier about the coordination and I mean, like, there were funding opportunities that didn't come through and some things didn't work. But in order for Nepal to some extent independently take this forward, or like join hands with partners, international partners, what do you see are the priority points? Like, is it funding? Is it technical assistance? Is it training? Or like, what are these things that need to be prioritized in order to restore all of these stations, as well as build like a national infrastructure where like the data processing as well as seamless the operation is possible for Nepal, since you've worked here for a time?
Yeah, Arun, thanks for that. I truly think maybe the biggest obstacle is maybe the pride between, or the perhaps politics or between government agencies. I think, being very territorial, maybe DMG and survey department, maybe they feel like they're in competition. So I think that's the biggest barrier. And I think there's enough money within the governments, to revive the stations and properly maintain them. And the knowledge is there, but I think maybe it's the willpower, to do this. And again, the example, and I think, in Australia and Europe and USA, a CORS network, it makes money. It supports the economy greatly. So you put in a little money and you get out a lot of money. And, it's creating businesses and scientific opportunities. So yeah, it to me, it's what we call in English a no-brainer. So, but I think we just have to get over our egos and work together. So that's the biggest obstacle, Arun, in my opinion.
Right. That sounds lucrative. How does this generate so much money, as you've been you told earlier? Because that should be.
Well, yeah. Well, just imagine, do you know what RTK surveying is? I'm sure you do.
Yeah. Some extent.
Yes. So just imagine you don't have to set up your own base station. You just receive corrections from the CORS network, a nearby CORS station. You don't have the expense of buying a base RTK receiver and sending someone out there to guard it and watch it. You could be doing your RTK surveying, using corrections from a national CORS, or imagine you are doing a LiDAR flight. You're covering, I think Eastern Nepal hasn't yet had a LiDAR mapped yet. So the aircraft flying can get corrections, real-time corrections for positioning of not just the aircraft, but the laser instruments for more precise real-time products or redundancy. So those are some ways that I think through efficiency you're making money, and you're also producing more in less time. So those are just some examples.
Right. So it's the cost effectiveness when you operationalize your surveying projects that counts as good business.
And maybe perhaps the most important is the CORS network for establishing a dynamic datum, a national reference frame, so that different projects, you're all on the same, just as a metaphor, you're on the same sheet of music. You're apples to apples, oranges to oranges. You're using the same reference frame. You're not a surveyor in one project has their own, initial point, and then another surveyor in another location, they have their own reference. And then when they try to tie the two projects together, they can't, because they're not on a systematic reference frame, a national reference frame. So that alone, is perhaps the most, where you get the most value from a CORS network. Does that make sense?
Yes, here. So there's one more question from Amrit Marasini. Are there any upgrades or newer technology to replace the NOAA CORS network so that the relevancy of this might have decreased in the present Nepali context? That's the question.
Amrit, I'm so glad you asked that question. So 23 years ago, when I was working in Southern California for the USGS, when we were making really the first dense network, CORS network in the United States, we also were advancing CORS science at the time. We developed that gray radome that you see. It's very precise thickness, and it's very strong. It protects from the elements, but doesn't distort the GPS signal. So we developed that. We developed the leveling adapter that the antenna interfaces with the monument. So, and that braced monument, you saw that tripod, that stainless steel tripod. So we were making monuments that are drilled into the earth 10 meters each leg. And then for sites, more difficult sites like mountain areas or islands where you cannot bring that big drilling equipment, we have portable equipment, portable generators, portable drills, portable welding equipment. You can make these stations in remote areas, just like we did in Jomsom, for example. But it's those monuments, those braced monuments that you see in the photos that I showed, not concrete pillars. There's research that shows concrete pillars are unstable. And as a matter of fact, right now at NGS, we have concrete pillars, and that is what NGS was promoting 25 years ago to the US community for monumentation, concrete pillars. But in Southern California, we were trying to tell NGS, no, please use braced monuments. Take your cores off of buildings if possible. Don't use concrete pillars. Use braced monuments. They're incredibly stable. And I won't go into the reasons why. But so So that's part of the reason I was hired onto NGS, is to help correct a lot of the mistakes of the last 2 decades. So another thing, NGS, at the moment, we used to be the world leader, and now we are far behind. We are still just processing GPS only. We're not processing multi-GNSS, such as, and maybe this is to check that people are engaged. Do other people know the other satellite constellations besides American GPS? Let's see in the chat window. This is test time. What are the other GNSS satellite constellations? I don't see anything in the chat. I'll give it a few more seconds. So, for example, the Russian GLONASS system, the European Galileo system, the Chinese Beidou system, and the the Japanese QZSS. Yes, even India, very good, Amrit. So India, they're the latest ones on the block to come with their own version of GNSS. But these receivers now, modern GNSS equipment can take in all these signals to make your position even more precise. And you really need that in Nepal, in the deep canyons, and deep mountain valleys, or even in urban situations like Kathmandu or Patan or in Banipa, those urban canyons. So the more satellites you see, the more precise you are. But NGS, at the moment, we cannot bring in anything else other than GPS. So we are behind in the way we process data, analyze. So we are behind, and we're trying to catch back up. So Amrit, yeah, I would say go with braced monuments, use domes, radomes to protect your equipment, and utilize multi-GNSS, unlike my own NGS at the moment, which only uses GPS. Those are maybe the main advances there.
Right. There are more questions, John. Are you willing to take more?
Absolutely. As long as you are interested, I'm happy to stay on, and I'm happy to take criticism too. You know, if so.
Yeah, and also John, Bishal, who was earlier asking about the sleep ratios and other aspects, he
Yes.
will probably, like, if you're okay with that, we'll send him your email address so that he can reach.
Absolutely.
Possible, and we can do
Absolutely.
that with the rest of the participants as well. There's one before I take Mahesh Dai. There's one from Amrit Ji again. In the geology sector, where else can we use the course data apart from knowing the subsidence and movement after the major quake? That's his another question.
Yeah, there are one flavor of cores that maybe you don't want for geodetic control, but you could put continuous GNSS stations, cores, on landslides or landslide prone areas, or to monitor slow landslides. Like, for example, I remember on the way to Chilime, you know, north to Dunche, I think you pass by some very big, large, slow-moving landslides. You could be using cores. Maybe you don't want to invest a lot of money, maybe cheap GNSS equipment and cheap monuments to monitor landslide movements. Just again, for safety purposes, to warn people that perhaps, for example, you see increased movement after a rain, and then you close the highway down during that time. So that's one way I can think of. And again, using CORS when you're doing these other techniques like LiDAR drone surveying or LiDAR aircraft LiDAR surveying, you're using CORS as survey control in when you're doing those surveys to assess, for example, topographic surveys, or you're measuring mining operations, the volume of material taken out of a mine and such. So those are some applications in geology that I can think of.
Right. There are more questions in the chat, which we can get back to. In the meanwhile, Mahesh Dai, do you have a question? Because,
Not a question really, John. I just wanted to share that in some sense, America and I think Nepal is very similar in one sense, at least. It's regarding convincing that breast monument was the best. We established 2 stations, one at Bara and another at Bardivas, and we had a similar difficult time to convince that breast monument is actually better than the pillar monument. I just wanted to share this, John. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Mahesh. Yeah, it's not only is it more stable, but it's actually faster to install a braced monument. We could do it in one morning, install a braced monument, and you don't have to let the concrete cure or dry. You could be surveying, operating right away. But there's also another aspect. That top surface of the concrete pillar is a source of I'll say electromagnetic noise for the GNSS antenna. It's a source of multipath and trapped GNSS waves that degrade the quality of the GNSS signal. So it's not just the physical instability, but also in electromagnetic instability as well. And then there's the long term, where concrete, I mean, we see it now, NGS concrete pillars that are crumbling after 20 years.
right. So there's one more query about private companies building their own stations in places that they're working in Nepal, and they're using antennas of different companies having different capabilities of receiving. Is there any way we can bring everyone under the same roof? What about the compatibility and reliability, if we can do so?
So we have this same situation in USA, and you'll find it in Europe too, and Australia. So if you establish a CORS and you want to use it for survey or geodetic control, or even for scientific purposes, you really should get high quality geodetic grade equipment and make sure that it has been calibrated by, for example, calibrated and in the IGS catalog. We even at NGS, we have our own calibration, antenna calibration facility, a robotic arm that does the service. And so actually, we actually get a lot of requests from Chinese companies to do antenna calibrations. But again, to be consistent, make sure that you go to the IGS, you check the antenna and the receiver list, make sure that it's been calibrated. So that's one way. Another way is, again, we're talking about a national network, and then we have these national best practices that we try to standardize on what the reference point you're measuring on the monument is, and maintenance best practices. And I should also say it's not just taking care of the electronics, it's also you have to maintain the vegetation around a CORS. You cannot let trees grow up and around the CORS. You will get false readings. And I could show you examples where trees were allowed to grow next to a CORS because someone they thought, oh, maybe the tree doesn't matter. It matters. You cut the tree down and suddenly the position of the station shifts, not because the monument moved, but because you now you change the amount of satellite signals you're getting from a certain direction. So yeah, these are private companies making cores. Yeah, there should be a national, just like the NGS, maybe the survey department should be the standard for Nepal.
Okay, there's a last one. Is it true that UNAVCO has withdrawn support for access and download of course data of Nepal?
Okay, so UNAVCO, it was the umbrella organization. You know, Caltech didn't. Caltech and DMG, they established the cores, but Caltech and DMG, they didn't have the technology to handle the data. Science Foundation, that meant they could qualify to get support from UNAVCO. And UNAVCO has the resources, the VPN and the communication methods that they could, if you establish a router there, that they can go into the receiver, pull the data, and then do some basic processing and then archive the data. UNAVCO, they don't do analysis, but they make the data available to the researchers at Caltech and DMG, but it's also the responsibility, it's the policy, because it was public money that funded the Caltech, and Caltech used that money to make Nepal cores. So the data has to be publicly available. So, but the problem is, if the stations are not running, it's not UNAVCO's responsibility to operate the stations. That's the responsibility of Caltech and DMG. But if Caltech and DMG don't have an MOU, then it truly falls on DMG. So if the stations are being maintained and are not online, UNAVCO can't get the data and make it available for all. So does that answer the question, Ashok?
Yes,
I'm going to assume yes, but any
You
other
did say-
questions?
Did say yes.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Anyone else? Do you have questions? Or okay, there are notes of thank you to you, John. And I think we can call it off for today. So, John, thank you very much for this time that you took off for this 2-hour-long session, and there were many hiccups in the meanwhile in the middle of the session. Sorry for that. We were trying to get more people into the session, and like some of these weird bots also got in. But thank you, John, and thank you, Will, for attending as well. Do you have anything to add on, Will, since you're here?
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I just want to support you guys, like what John was saying. And we're in the process of updating a bunch of our design drawings for Brace monuments, which we will be excited to share with you, as well as some fieldwork guidelines that are going to be developed over the coming months. Yeah, and John, awesome job, buddy. Thank you.
And everyone, I just want to let you know, Will is we are partners at NGS. I'm good in the field and you know that aspect, and Will, he is great with project management and budgeting and contract management. So yeah, we work hand in hand. I also want to shout out, I saw that one of the people in my branch, a CORS analyst, Ira Sellers, she was also online. So participate. I also want to thank Nepal Geomatics Engineering Society. Thank you for this opportunity, and Shankar KC from Survey Department for this idea to do this. So thank you all. You're wonderful. You are the future. I know we can do this.
Indeed, yeah. Sankardai, thank you so much for this leads to John, and we plan to organize these sessions in the future, not just about course, but about a variety of other contemporary technical issues and solutions that we can in the future. And anyone, if you have interesting people like John in mind who could share this platform with us and present things that could be relevant, it would be appreciated. Thank you very much again to John. And I can see Suman Sharma, Sundar sir, a lot of people that we've seen working in this area for a long time. And this, I hope, has been fruitful, productive 2 hours for you. And I'd like to request you to keep updated about what we're going to be posting in the future, so that we can again come up with more sessions like these. John, thanks a lot again. And on behalf, okay, yeah, please.
One more thing, I forgot to say at the beginning. So I'm not here as on official duty from NGS. I'm here for my own vacation to mentor the Engineers Without Borders students, and then help in CORS unofficially. So the opinions that I expressed are mine only, and not of the US government or NOAA or NGS. So yeah, thank goodness I remembered to say that. So
yeah.
Thank you, John. I have one request. Everyone, please turn on your camera so we can have the screenshot of the session, this beautiful session from the John. Thank you again, John.
If you're comfortable, let's have a screen capture.
yeah, so nice to see faces, and this is one good good side of COVID was that we could join from all over. We don't have to fight traffic in Kathmandu to meet. So this is wonderful. So
all right,
and even our international friends, Will Freeman in Silver Spring, Maryland. It's so good to see you, Will.
okay,
yeah, and Will, it's not much of a relaxing vacation over here, but I can't I know no other type of vacation, so a work vacation. And Sangeeta, BC, good to see you. Go ahead, Will.
John has a reputation of just getting a lot of work done out in the field. You let him out in the field and he'll get twice as much field work accomplished. He is a machine.
But are you planning to celebrate your Christmas in Nepal, John?
Yes, we'll have a big Christmas here at Annie Madam's house. So Annie Vaidya, her husband is Suresh, and so he is, half Sherpa, half Newar, and Annie is Anglo-Indian. So she, celebrates Christmas, and so yeah, these are very special Christmases here in Nepal. So wishing you all a Merry Christmas. So.
Merry Christmas to you and everyone else. Have a nice day ahead, or good night wherever you are. And we'll talk soon again. Thank you. I'll call it off.